This is your before and after story. Southeastern College can help you prepare for a secure and fulfilling career in the growing healthcare field. We offer a wide range of careers to choose from, so whether you want to be a medical assistant, medical billing and coding specialist, nurse, surgical technologist, or another healthcare career, we've got you covered. Become a vital part of a healthcare team and make a real difference. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, June the 16th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get the week off to a flying start. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86. 26, so what an awful game 5 for the Edmonton Oilers. Really came out and laid an egg. A real lackluster performance against the Florida Panthers. They get walloped 5-2, and now here they are down 3-2, heading back to Florida tomorrow night to try to force a Game 7, which would be Friday night at Edmonton. You know, home ice is important, of course, for the Game 7, but that Game 5, you ask athletes that play in 4 out of 7s, you know, the likelihood of the home team winning, or even a split in both Edmonton and Florida, Game 5 was always going to be a huge game, and boy, oh boy, I think they've managed, 19 shots or something? Goaltending, dreadful. Anyway, so I see Bob Cole, some memorabilia from the hockey broadcasting legend, is being auctioned off at Bartlett's Auctions. Just curious if anyone out there has actually had a look at it or has bought anything. I'd like to report what you've seen, what you got, and why you bought it. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. And here we go. The boats are on the pond down the Kauai Divide, Kitty Vitty, getting prepared for the Royal St. John's Regatta. I see there's a first ever Team Ukraine. All women from Ukraine participating in the regatta. You know, you talk about adjusting to life in Canada and participating in some of our own traditions, what have you. Well, there's nothing much more towny than rowing in the regatta. Anyway, you want to talk about it? Let's go. Sticking with the water, I see Tony Wakeham out there, leader of the PCs, talk about Marine Atlantic and a promise made on the campaign hustings by now Prime Minister Carney. Talking about cutting the fees for Marine Atlantic in at least half. We'll see. And he should follow through on the pledge because it's important to us. Now, Mr. Wakeham also goes on to say that, you know, here comes tourism season. I would imagine most of the bookings for this year's tourism season are probably made. This is where the political will comes in because the bookings on Marine Atlantic are super strong. You know, boats are at capacity for the most part. So there's an interesting suggestion coming from an emailer over the course of the weekend talking about exactly that, the Marine Atlantic fees. Wondering aloud, and I'll just throw it out there for your consideration, 2 things. Whether or not everybody in the province gets a 1 free passage round trip on Marine Atlantic per year. I'm not so sure that's going to happen, but could there actually be a different lower fee for residents of this province, given the fact that it's our constitutional highway? So Marine Atlantic, we'll see what the Prime Minister does, but he really should, and we should keep the pressure on to make sure that happens. All right, yesterday, the 15th of June, was World Elder Abuse Day. Sometimes people are willing to share their stories live on the air, but most people choose to keep it quiet and maybe give me some details via email, which unfortunately happens far too often. So, and it's not all about physical abuse. It can be emotional abuse and neglect, financial abuse. And the whole concept of ageism, it's still one of the last socially accepted stigmas. And it's problematic for seniors, of course it is. But what's really a sad part of this story is, far too often, in fact, most of the time, this type of abuse takes place at the hands of friends or family. So if you know someone that may indeed be in need of some adult protection, we do have a toll-free number you should call. But just imagine the shameful person that you must be to take advantage of your aging aunt or uncle or nan or pop or mom or dad or whatever the case may be. So World Elder Abuse Day was yesterday, but I thought it was important to put it back out there for your consideration today. All right, a couple of quick ones. So the portal, the applications are now being accepted for the annual home heating supplement issue. Of course, they're open right through till January the 15th, 2026. Some 20,000 people applied for the 2024 program, so it's up and running again. If you have a net family income, a net adjusted family income of 2024 was $150,000 or less and have directly incurred costs for the purchase of furnace or stove oil to heat your principal residence, you'll be eligible. So there's a floating amount between $200 and $500, so it's open. A couple of things you need to remind yourself. You have to provide an invoice, which includes delivery address for the purchase of at least 250 litres of furnace or stove oil. You have to sign the application, double check that the social insurance number provided is correct. Printed materials to display in common areas can be downloaded at the government's website. Also, if a resident has an older parent or family friend who may be eligible for the program, please do remind them to apply for it. On that front, another pot of money that has been pretty popular, if you're eligible for the Aging Well at Home grant. So $400 annually, and it's to benefit low-income seniors. So if you're eligible for the seniors benefit, you're eligible to apply for this. Plenty of people are saying, we did exactly that, and we've been waiting a long, long time for that 2024 money. We're trying to find out exactly what the holdup is. Now, some people have reported receiving it already, but I've got a couple of families that, give me an update once a week or once every couple of weeks, asking me if I know more about when the monies will be flowing from the government. You can use this for a variety of things. There is some, I think, probably just a public service announcement, not a warning. But it's being suggested that you might have to keep copies of invoices and how you spend that $400. But how does that happen? So if you hire a kid up the street to shovel the driveway, or hire someone to paint the fence who's, not a professional painter, isn't incorporated, doesn't have workers' comp, so what are people supposed to do? You can only hope that the government is not going to chase around a low-income senior to see how they spent the $400. So anyway, we'll try to find out when you can anticipate the money coming in the door. And here we are on the home stretch. Last couple of weeks of school in the K-12 system. So let's hear from you about your child's experience on any front inside the province of schools, and we'll have an education conversation. Remember, was it last year, I guess, they identified a foul odor at Holy Redeemer School out in Spaniards Bay, and it took a long, long time to try to figure out what it was. Now, apparently, there's a pretty foul odor emanating from maybe the storm basin or the catchments and or the pipes, whatever it is, the sulfur stinking up the entrances at the Cornerbrook Hospital. So they think they've figured it out. They think they've identified a mechanical fix for it. But remember, so they build a brand new hospital, and that's the good thing for folks in the region. And now this pops up, and apparently, as soon as it was open, kind of experienced some capacity issues. So they've gone back to 2 floors in the old hospital to accommodate some 45 patients. So if you have some questions, comments, concerns regarding either that stench and or the capacity issues at that particular hospital or anything inside the healthcare envelope, we can talk about it today. But on that front, so lots of people got hired as tradespeople to work in the construction phase for that hospital. But then you look around at the world of trades and the members represented by Trades NL. Those are about 14,000 strong. So you see that hospital completed. Then you see the West White Rose concrete gravity structure completed. The adult mental health and addiction facility completed. And now, apparently, 74% of the 14,000 members of Trades NL are currently unemployed. We know in the type of economy we have here, whether it be the natural resources-based economy and some of these major infrastructure projects, it's the concept or the issue regarding boom-bust, the cyclical nature of these types of major projects. Sometimes we may indeed rely too heavily on them, but 74% of 14,000 either having to chase jobs around the country or apply for employment insurance, whatever the case may be. But then you look at what might be in the offing. So a lot of skilled tradespeople, a lot of people who are oil and gas industry watchers, wondering whether or not Bay Nord, even though Equinor seems to be proceeding in somewhat, letting contracts, for instance, for an FPSO, is the trick there, and with the Upper Churchill and everything to do with it. And we can take on those 2 big topics, especially given the fact that Michael Sabia, the former head at Hydro-Quebec, is now the clerk of the Privy Council, or will be by July 7th. And, of course, former Premier Fury, 2 key figures in negotiations for the Upper Churchill MOU and everything to do with it. I mention both because the trick will be how many jobs afforded to people here in this province, what the benefits agreements will look like. People are already wondering what Equinor may do if they proceed and make a final investment decision for Beta Nord, just how much work will be here. People also wonder about when you enter into an agreement with the province of Quebec, who have historically been very quick to make sure that every job that can be filled by a Quebecer is exactly that. So we're told, even by Jennifer Williams, the CEO of Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, that the benefits agreement there will be very much like at Muskrat Falls. Whether or not that worked 100% as intended, I'll leave it up to you. But of course, qualified Indigenous peoples in Labrador, qualified Labradorians, qualified people from the island, qualified people from the rest of the country, qualified people from the rest of the world, in that order. So with that many tradespeople looking for work at this moment in time, it really does point to the big projects in the busy couple of years, good, and then not so good. At the exact same time, we're hearing from the mining industry, through Mining NL, about just how many skilled tradespeople they need. Oh, and of course, when we look at major projects, we can throw the potential for wind, hydrogen, ammonia export, because if indeed any of those come to pass, there'll be lots of jobs in the construction phase. But Mining NL, talking specifically about Bay Verte, which we mentioned last week, there's lots of expansion in that sector in and around Bay Verte and other parts of the province. They're going to need about 1,000 workers just at Bay Verte alone. But that's not today. So maybe we'll reach out to someone that trades in L, whether it be Corey Parsons, who's the deputy director, to talk about what's going on and what benefits agreements could and should look like into the future. And then it's some of those youth programs to encourage people to get into things, in this case, the trades. They're probably going to hold back on some of those offerings, because why try to entice someone to get into a field at this very moment in time where there might not be work? So we talk about it right across the country. Skilled trade shortage, and now 74% of 14,000 members of Trades NL looking for work. And of course, when you make reference to Bay Verte, not only coming up with the workers, but everything required, whether it be housing, childcare, other pieces of infrastructure to accommodate that type of population growth. But you want to talk about it, let's do exactly that this morning. All right. So there's going to be an update at noon today about whatever's going on, whatever the status or state is of the replacement for Her Majesty's Penitentiary. We know they've had the site selected for an awful long time up around East White Hills Road. Okay, remember all the confusion about whether or not there was hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government in the provincial bank account for exactly this purpose? And apparently there is. So we'll get an update today, and you know, it's almost a bit tiring to get updates on something like that when we've been talking about replacing that dungeon for decades. And here we are. So remember, some of the dates all the way back to the 1860s. And we're still having people working in there and incarcerated in there. But apparently an update coming today. And for people who talk about tough on crime, remember, there are people getting out or getting credit for time served, not time and a half like it used to be, but double time. Why? Conditions. All right, let's keep going, a couple of big ones. So, some 5 Canadian premiers, Ontario's Doug Ford, Tim Houston, Nova Scotia, Susan Holt of New Brunswick, Rob Lance of PEI, and John Hogan of this province in Boston, meeting with some delegates or governors from the northeastern United States. All right. So, obviously, these are important matters. But some of it comes across as a little bit confusing. If one of the major concerns is the unpredictability of the White House, the on-again, off-again tariffs, then I know it's important to have good relations with governors in the northeastern United States in particular. But if they're going to focus in on tariffs, what can any of their discussions actually entail? I'm really hoping that Premier Hogan and whoever's part of that delegation representing this province is extending that conversation beyond just economic ties, economic partnerships, diversification of markets, because the tariffs are going to be pretty critically important there, and no governor or no premier is going to be able to do much other than get in the ears of folks who may indeed have some influence in the American political landscape. But what's that going to look like? I hope the conversation's also about what they see in other provinces. And I don't know why we would hesitate to do what, say, for instance, they're doing in British Columbia. Let's also look for healthcare professionals. Apparently it's happening pretty quickly in the province of British Columbia. They're at it in Ontario as well, so let's add that to the agenda. If I had my druthers, I would hope that the Premier is doing exactly that. And of course, in the world of meetings, the big one, starting this morning in Kananaskis country in beautiful Alberta. So the G7. The last time the president was here was in Charlevoix, Quebec in 2018. Apparently there's a one-on-one private meeting between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump this morning, talking about, of course, starting with a trade deal. Some of the quote-unquote sources are implying that there's been some forward momentum. I'm not so sure we can anticipate a hard and fast and signed trade deal after a couple of days in Alberta, but obviously top of the agenda for the Prime Minister. Secondly, you know full well some of the global armed tensions has got to be a big part of this conversation. The focusing on Israel and Iran, if you listen to Keir Starmer from the UK, that's the primary concern he's bringing to this conversation. And of course, this collection of leaders is going to have to grapple with it on top of issues regarding trade. Sometimes it feels like what's happening in other parts of the world is so much more devastating and grave than trade interruptions, but the tariff and the relationship between this country and the United States is not just our two countries. There's a global slowdown happening here. The unpredictability is really chasing away investment as well. So let's put that out there. I saw in one American blogger's post there, I guess it was a Friday afternoon, is one of the bugaboos, especially when we talk about trade, will indeed come back to one of the president's favorites, and that's dairy, poultry, and eggs. If you're not in agriculture, if you're not in that part of the farming sector, you probably don't think much about it. But supply management has been kicked around forever and a day as to whether or not it's good for consumers or simply good for farmers. So, fascinatingly, Wisconsin has more cows and produces more milk than this country, which until I read that stat one time, I didn't think it could be possible. But supply management goes all the way back to the 1960s. 3 so-called pillars as published according to the Library of Parliament. All right. First pillar, quotas. Under supply management, there's actually a national marketing agency which determines production amounts for each commodity and then sets production quotas for each province. This also pertains to interprovincial trade. If you have a cow farm, a dairy farm in Alberta or Saskatchewan or Manitoba, close to a lot of the feed products required for said cattle, then their concern would be for other provinces, like for instance, if you have a dairy farm in Quebec or in this province, much more expensive to produce the milk, then what happens if some of those federal trade barriers go away? So it's not only international trade, but also domestic trade. So the first pillar is quotas. Every farmer has to have a quota to be able to sell their product. So there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 17,000 quota holders in Canada. The value of that is somewhere around $37 billion. One of the real thorns on the president's side. The second one, prices, minimum prices. If you are a supply managed producer, you're guaranteed a minimum price for your product. So you go through provincial marketing boards, then the farmers negotiate with said boards to come up with what they call farm gate prices. So the critics say we simply pay too much because of this. If you look around the rest of the world, the evidence is really not all that clear. You know, Australia, when they removed their supply management, they didn't call it that, but their supply management, prices rose about 27% per litre over the course of a few years. So there's no real clear understanding of how it works. But why is it a big deal for the Americans? Tariffs. We've long had tariffs on a variety of products coming in from the United States and elsewhere. So this is not a new conversation, but the tariff threshold has never been hit, and so consequently no tariffs have been charged of American product. For instance, in the world of dairy, they use a growth hormone which is banned for use by Canadian farmers by Health Canada. So in that tariff world, which is also where we get a lot of misleading information. Okay, we set the tariff, of course, meaning some foreign goods, about 10% of Canada's domestic dairy market enters tariff-free, but an import on anything to extend beyond that. In comparison, so we've got a significant percentage of our market open to the Americans. The United States gives foreign dairy producers access to only 2.75% of its domestic market. Europe offers just 0.5% access to for a foreign country. So as much as we get the gripes coming from south of the border, the fact of the matter is we have a more open market than they do for our products. So that one, not so sure how that bleeds into the conversation today, but it long has been one of the front and center issues, on top of steel and aluminum and automobiles and the rest of it. So what do you think? We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. And yes, we can talk about what went down south of the border over the weekend or in the recent past. But of course, domestic issues front of mind for me, and I would suggest for most. We're opening our emails. It's openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue. The topic, up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Derek, you're on the air.
How are you doing today, Patty?
Doing great today. How about you?
Oh, number one. You guys are doing a great job there, I guarantee you that.
Thanks, Derek.
Patty, what I'm calling about is these proposed ecological reserves by the Department of Environment. There's 10 of them in total, and it's going to affect every Newfoundlander in a negative way. If you're a hunter, you're a trouter, if you're a cabin owner, a cottage owner, you own an ATV, a side-by-side, or a snowmobile, you're going to be affected. I strongly suggest all these people contact your local MHA and voice your concerns. Patty, we also have a petition on the go to stop this reserve, and I encourage everybody to sign it. They can view the petition online at www.change.org. Preserve our heritage. Stop Ripple Pond from becoming an ecological reserve.
So this is out Salmon Air.
Well, this particular reserve for Ripple Pond is Salmon Air, yes.
Okay. So has it been published that that particular hunting area will see hunting be prohibited into the future? Because it's generally about forestry and mining.
If you go into the Act, Patty, you know, the Wildlife Act and the Wilderness and Ecological Reserve Act.
Yeah.
Once it becomes a reserve, and I'm going to read out to you right here, right off the government document. Just give me a second here because I got so much information there, just unreal. And these are all facts, okay? So this is the Hawks Hill Reserve, okay? And this is legislation that's in place already. The following activities are strictly prohibited in all wilderness and ecological reserves. Disturbing, destroying, or removing plant fossils. Forestry, mining, hydro development, agriculture, new roads, tracks, or building construction. Driving off-road vehicles, including all-terrain vehicles. So, Patty, these proposed reserves in cabin areas and cottage areas, okay, we've been using networks of trail systems for years, linking these cottages together. If these reserve goes in place, you will not be allowed to use that trail no more. Another big thing is when it comes to big game hunting, under the current rules and regulations, when you harvest an animal, you can use your quad to make 5 trips to retrieve your animal. If these reserves come into place, you will not be allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, so just so I'm not confused, because sometimes I am. So you're mentioning the use of an ATV or a quad or whatever the case may be to get out big game that has been hunted. But if you're not allowed to hunt, then it's simply no access on a quad or a trike or anything of the sort, right?
Correct.
Period.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sometimes a little bit confused about why certain things like ecological reserves have restrictions on things. Like, you're going to be able to go in and pick berries or what have you, but what does hunting necessarily have to do with the protection, ecologically speaking? I understand when they talk about, massive forestry exercises or new construction or mining or hydro transmission lines, but hunting always comes across as one where I'm not entirely sure why that's also going to be prohibited.
Yeah, well, Patty, you just mentioned mining, okay, as one of those things. I don't understand the way our government works. If you go on the Newfoundland Atlas land use map and you Google Ripple Pond, you go in there and they say no development allowed with the exception of those applications for mining exploration. How is that protecting that area? Is not. So the government is deceiving people here. They're leading people to believe that once this becomes a reserve, It's going to be protected, and we still have access to it. Patty, when we lose this land, it's gone. They don't make land anymore. It's gone. The government is doing us wrong here. You know, they started this back in 2021. And the people are only made publicly known about it in 2024. They mailed out a few little things here to the people in the area to make them aware of it. But they didn't send it to the cabin owners who live in Paradise, St. John's, Mount Pearl, all those areas, because that's where their mailing address is to. Another thing, this was on NTV News last Monday, saying that 71% of the people were in favor of this reserve. You know what that 71% was based on, Patty? No. 78 people. 78 people. The last time I checked, the population of Newfoundland and Labrador is over 500,000. We have 107,000 big game hunters here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Every one of them should have been notified because they can apply for this hunting area 33. So the government is just trying to sneak this in underneath the door, make it a reserve, and then all our rights are taken away.
To offer an exemption for mining exploration, I mean, I know that you can do that without being too destructive, but why would anyone go explore to find minerals if they don't think they're going to be able to open up a mine? So there's another disconnect there for me.
Absolutely, Patty. You know, we the Newfoundlanders, we protect the land. Our fathers and grandfathers and our forefathers hunted and fished this land before Confederation. You can go down and find the names of people who died at the rooms. Okay, the rooms are paid by taxpayers, by the way. And to list all the names of people that hunted and fished and died providing for their families. That's part of our culture, our heritage, our way of life. That is no different, Patty, than the Inuit people and the indigenous people in Labrador and the rest of Canada. They have land rights. The people of Newfoundland owns this land, not the government.
Understood. So we've had Graham from Weirac on the show many times, and you know they make recommendations. They don't make decisions, and they put forward all these recommendations to cabinet. Some of these recommendations have been sitting on desks inside the cabinet for years. So I don't know what the holdup here. Maybe it's political decision making going into final considerations here. But your point is well understood and well taken. Can you give me some idea just what the footprint of that particular proposed reserve is?
Oh, okay. So Patty, there's roughly 350 licenses issued for this Area 33. So if you look at the hunting Area 33 map, and then you look at the reserve they have proposed, we're going to lose approximately 50% of our hunting area. Okay? And the other thing to factor into that is that under the rules and regulations of the Wildlife Act, and I have no problem with this because safety is number one to me when I'm hunting, we are not allowed to hunt within 300 meters of a dwelling or 1,000 meters of a school or a playground. If you factor that into our hunting area here, and we have a very small area, that shrinks the area that we can hunt to even smaller. And the area that they're proposing to take away is one of the prime hunting areas for this Area 33. And the only way to go in there to retrieve your animal is you walk in and you harvest your animal, and then you're going to have to use your quad or Argo to bring it out. You know, you're walking in 2 or 3 kilometers sometimes to harvest your animal. How are you going to bring it out? You know, you're dealing with a 1,000-pound animal. Another point there, Patty, is this. There's a lot of people in this province that are physically disabled and seniors that have a mobility issue that they've hunted all their life. How are they going to be able to access these areas that they hunted and fished all their life if they can't use a quad to go in the existing trail system? It's not the hunters and the fishermen that destroys the country. You're talking about protecting this area. We're already protected, Patty. We just need more enforcement.
So if you say it's not hunters and gatherers and anglers that are destroying the environment, are you suggesting that there are a certain group of people? Like, who would that be?
Well, I don't know, Patty.
Okay.
You know, I hear the Department of Environment saying protect our wetlands, protect our bogs. You know, people are going to ATVs to tear it up. Hunters don't do that. We respect the land. But here's the point that I want to make about this. So they're trying to do this to say they're going to protect the wetlands and all this stuff. We already have rules and regulations under the All-Terrain Vehicles Act and the Snowmobile Act here in Newfoundland that says that you are prohibited from using an ATV on a wetland or a marsh or a bog. That's in there. The first offense is $500. The second offense is $1,000, and then your vehicle, I do believe, is £1. I'm not 100% sure on that. But what we need is, if they're concerned about that, is you need more enforcement. So instead of putting the resources into the Department of Environment, what they're doing, and taking away our land rights, I'd like for the government to put more effort into helping out the wildlife officers out there and enforce this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I will add to, and not just in the world of hunting in ATV or quad or Argo use, but when we talk about protection for the environment, and yet people have to struggle to get more time on the river for the river guardians, more guardians on more rivers for longer, and yet at the same, out of the same breath or same sentence, we're talking about protecting the wild species. So you can't have it both ways. Derek, final thoughts to you before I have to go.
Yeah, well, Patty, there is one more thing, and I don't want to take up much more time, but this is very important. This was a news release in May of 2025 by Minister Bernard Davis and these guys with the Advisory Council. And it was released May 25th, 2023. And they said, we are committed to taking bold steps, this is Davis said this, to protect the invaluable land and marine ecosystems and unique species throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. Then co-chair Greenwood and Stanley Oliver said this: if we fail, and the emphasis on fail, to protect our environment, we will put the lives of humans, animals, plants, and all that we as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians hold dear to our hearts at risk. That's a bold statement, isn't it, Patty?
It is. Pretty definitive.
They have already failed us. Because if you look at the Burin Peninsula and the land use map, it's gone because of these windmills that are going in. The moose down there is the same as the moose in my hunting area here. And the rabbit down there is the same as the rabbit here in my area, Patty. How can they say that statement and hold their heads up and protect the people in Newfoundland, Labrador, and the environment? It's just wrong. You know, what they're doing, they're going to take away all our rights as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to hunt and fish these areas. You won't be able to go anywhere in a side-by-side, an ATV, your snowmobile. We've been using snowmobiles for years going in there ice fishing with our fathers. It's good for our mental health and well-being. And those physical disabled people, Confederation Building is wheelchair accessible. Department of Environment Building is wheelchair accessible. Patty, the land should be accessible for people to use. Yeah,
now the Confederation Building is accessible for people with mobility issues or in wheelchairs, unless you want to go into the House of Assembly. Then there's a problem. Derek, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you so much, Patty. You guys are doing a great job, sir. Take care and have a great day.
The same to you. Take care. All right, there we go. There was a Liz in the queue wanted to respond to Derek. Hopefully Liz is there when we come back. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Walter. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and a happy belated Father's Day. I hope you and your family had a beautiful day. It was one of the prettiest Father's Day I can remember in a long time when it comes to the weather, so I hope you enjoyed your day, sir.
Thank you very much. I sure did.
Wonderful stuff. Very quickly, Patty, I'm calling on behalf of the Hub today in my volunteer position with the Hub. We have a couple of really nice motorized mobility devices / wheelchairs that we'd like to get to individuals, as well as 2 chair / chair lifts, so going up your stairs. So those are also in very, very good condition. These can be quite expensive to purchase, and sometimes people will fall through the cracks of government support or their private insurance. So anybody who thinks that they could use those, I'm sure there are people out there who would appreciate them. We'd love to donate those items to them. They can call me very easily at 743-1793, very easy number to remember, 743-1793, and we will go through the proper stages and get these really good quality items to someone who deserves them, and maybe just make their lives just a little bit less stressful.
Excellent. So if they're in and around town, of course, getting them and picking them up or having them delivered is one thing, but what about if we have a listener, say, for instance, on the Southwest Coast who needs exactly that? What do we do?
I think there's enough connections there that we can absolutely make some kind of arrangements to get those delivered to them, no problem at all. There's a lot of people who provide, services for the hub out of the goodness of their heart. So I don't think there's anywhere in the island that we wouldn't be able to get those items to them.
Yeah, and I just asked because obviously people listening to the program might think that question out loud themselves while they're listening to the show. And plus, we've been involved in organising delivery, that kind of stuff, in different parts of the island when possible. We've had a bit of trouble trying to get things into Labrador every now and then. So if you are in need of one of the aforementioned electric wheelchairs and or stair lift, there's some at the hub. How many of each do you have?
2 of each, Paddy, and they're both in really good condition. The batteries are fully charged and ready to go on the motorized wheelchairs, and the stairs/chair lifts. They are next to new, so I don't see any issues with anybody getting those items, and they'll have them for many, many years. And if they come to the point where they don't need them anymore, they can just simply donate them to someone else who does.
Good on you for doing this, Walter. Appreciate your time.
I thank you so much for your time, Paddy. Have a great day.
The same to you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. So there you go. Obviously, someone listening to the program this morning will be have their interest piqued when they hear that there's a couple of those items, a couple of each of those available at the hub. Went a little long with Derek, so we're going to try to get a break here on time. I know there was a Liz in the queue wanted to respond to Derek, and his concern, of course, was the proposed ecological reserve around Ripple Lake. That's hunting zone 33. I was quizzed via email during that last break after we talked about hunting why I didn't put back out there the fight that people are entertaining to try to see an expansion of the recreational food fishery. And you know full well we can talk about that or anything else under the sun when we come back from this break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the artistic director at Persistence Theatre. That's Jen Dion. Good morning, Jen. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for having me on today. How are you?
I'm happy to have you on, Jen, but I'm going to get a cleaner phone line so we can have a good conversation. Let's go to line number 1. Ken, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. This is kind of a follow-up call to where I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about to get your thoughts on if the wind industry is coming and whatnot all of Newfoundland. Now, in that conversation, I remember you said there would be amendments or proposed amendments to Bill C-49. Now, I'm over on the Newfoundland Labrador government website and published on June 2nd, 2025, and there's the header, Newfoundland and Labrador and Canada move to unlock economic potential for offshore wind.
Right. It's part of the Atlantic Accord.
Yes, yeah, I understand that, but oh my goodness. So are the fishermen or fish officers not outraged about this? You know, like to my understanding, there was a moratorium on offshore wind for a couple of decades.
Well, there has never been a offshore wind proposal that has ever seen the light of day, as far as I can tell. And to answer your question about fish harvesters, I would think many are. And we've spoken directly to the FFAW about consultations regarding these amendments to the Atlantic Accord, what that might mean for some of the very prosperous fishing zones. So, yes, the union has certainly spoken on behalf of the harvesters in many areas.
Okay. I don't know. I've been thinking about what you said to me during that short conversation we had the other day. And so I decided, and today I decided to actually go looking for it. And sure enough, it's passed.
Yeah, it is.
And so none of this was ever, they had Clifford Small was chair of where they were trying to stop the amendments to the Atlantic or to Bill C-49 to accommodate the wind industry in Newfoundland, but I guess that was unsuccessful.
Correct. So was there anything in particular that I had said in our last conversation that was of concern, or was it simply the fact that I mentioned that the amendments had gone through?
Well, you just mentioned that, and it's been in my mind ever since. And I said, Patty made mention of that, and I said, I better dig into this and see if this has actually been passed. And gee, it has been. And it's like, do the people of Newfoundland know about this? This is are they aware? Are they aware of what possibly could come? Now, you mentioned something about when to your previous caller too. I was listening, and you did make mention of it again, like the possibility of jobs and stuff like that, right? But I don't know, like, gee.
Well, the reference to wind when we were talking to Derek is he was talking about protected areas on land that may see some of these proposed wind, hydrogen, ammonia's plays come to pass. So that was that specific mention. But I've brought this forward countless times on this show about the potential for offshore wind energy. I mean, we've even heard Premier Hogan talk about it in the recent past when they've rebranded what they used to call the Atlantic Loop into some sort of energy east play between the four Atlantic provinces. So I've brought this up many, many times. And we've invited the union on to talk about the different levels of consultation and some of the concerns they brought forward. So yeah, I've put it out there as much as I think I should, which is a lot.
Patty, I've been following, like, I've heard lots of recordings of people calling you, and you've offered some wonderful insights into this, industrial wind industry possibly coming to Newfoundland. I don't know if anybody's listening to you other than people like myself that are interested and care.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't know. I'm just kind of at a loss for words. Like I said, you've offered some very good insights as to, to help people that are proponents of or people that are against it, right?
Well, it's one thing when we talk about the buffer zones around any sort of offshore wind turbine, about how close fish harvesters can get so they can actually fish. But there's more to it than that. It's not just about that proximity issue. Offshore wind turbines can have a real impact on radar, on communications. And why? Because apparently just the rotation of the turbine itself can scatter the radar signals. So that's particularly true of the blades, obviously. But then there's issues potentially with air traffic control, coastal radar, weather radar, associated directly with these types of turbines. So there's plenty here for us to consider.
I know, Megan Lapp, she's a fisheries liaison out of, I think, Maine in the States, and she was a witness at that airing chaired by Clifford Small, I believe. And, she was warning Canada to not go for this, offshore wind industry, and I guess nobody heeded her warning.
Well, at this moment, there's a few different things here. Number one, we were told by then Minister of Energy, Andrew Parsons, that before these amendments were even proposed and before they got passed, that there were proponents regarding offshore wind that were kicking the proverbial tires in this province. Since the amendments, I haven't heard one single peep about it. Plus, there's got to be not only an understanding about the fishing grounds, but also routes for air travel. If there's any complications coming with air traffic control, then it cannot be anywhere where there's a predictable flight path, notably commercial, but you also have to include small or single aircraft. So there's a lot to this, and I'm happy to talk about it because, for better or worse, I've forced myself to read a lot about it.
Well, you know what, and I, for one, thank you, Patty, for your I thank you for your research and your knowledge on this, and I've been digging in myself. But I mean, I do have a little bit of a social media presence, and I've talked about this. Put up videos and stuff like that, and it doesn't really garner a whole lot of attention. I don't understand it. What's wrong with the people in Newfoundland? Why aren't they concerned about their, especially fishing?
I think a lot of the wind concern came in the form of on land. Now, I guess that's probably because there were actually some proposals and some areas that had been identified, which gives people, I guess, the impetus to put their concerns forward. Because unless we had, like, for instance, if we had an offshore wind proposal and we knew exactly where, then I think you'd probably hear a lot more pushback or questions or concerns being voiced by people who use that region, specifically professional fish officers. And then, of course, into the world of air traffic control and understanding communication complications, understanding radar that gets their sensitivity reduced because of the turbine. So I think that's the difference. On land, we've got proposals, and people in the area know it and have questions. We don't have any offshore. Consequently, people have probably not given it much in the way of focus yet.
Well, Patty, I can't add anything that you just. I can't add anything to what you just said, brother. And so I guess I'll have to. The only place I can get my information on new updates is to give you a call, because I'm asking questions out there online and nobody seems to know anything. And to reiterate what I just said, I don't understand why the fish harvesters aren't taking this, aren't concerned right now and to try and stop it before it ever comes. Those are my thoughts.
And I appreciate you making time for the show. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Thank you, Patty, and I appreciate you talking to me today. Thank you very much. You have a great day.
Same to you. Thanks for the call. All right, there we go. Jen, we're going to wait for after the news to get you so we don't jam you up for just about 90 seconds worth of chat. I do think sometimes, things that have not happened, things that have not been brought forward, or formal applications, when they're not made, I guess it's probably human nature with such a busy life and so much on the go. Like, I mean, if you took all the events domestically, provincially, internationally, it literally is like drinking from a fire hose. I guess that's not how you use literally. It is like drinking from a fire hose. So when there is going to be, potentially in the future, because we were told that offshore wind proponents were asking questions of the province. And now, like I heard a listener sent me a note about, the Atlantic premiers and talking about trade and talking about energy, whether or not that all Atlantic loop, which was simply a marketing exercise when it was initially announced, then the feds talked about how much money they could have in support of it, and then it went away. And Tim Houston pulled out in Nova Scotia and became nothing. There has been some reinvigorated talk about energy production and distribution amongst Atlantic Canadian premiers. I suppose that'll be furthered as they're now down in Boston talking with some of the governors down there. And, just talk about politics and political leanings or political ideology driving some of these conversations. There is one of the governors that is not going to meet with the other governors and other delegates in the United States and or the Canadian counterparts. Let's see here. I had the itemized there earlier, and it's just ridiculous. So the Republican governor of New Hampshire is Kelly Ayotte, not going to go. Why? Because she's a Trump supporter. Don't the people in New Hampshire want to have their governor involved in talking about efficiency of economics, partnerships? I mean, this is sometimes we lean too hard in whether there's an L or a CPC or an NDP at the heels of somebody's name, or there's an R or a D in the United States. I mean, got to be some shared common ground here about what people need economically speaking. But nope, because you've hatched your wagon to one figure or another, you can't go to these kind of discussions. It's just bizarre. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, lots of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's see if we can figure this out on line number 2. Say good morning to the artistic director at Persistence Theatre. That's Jen Dion. Good morning, Jen. You're on the air.
Hello again, Patty. How's that?
Much better. Thank you.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Well, thanks for having me on, because it's a big week for Persistence Theatre. Your listeners may have heard that we have been working for the last 4 or 5 years to build the first statue to a singular named woman in the city of St. John's, and that is Armine Nutting Gosling. We are so thrilled that unveiling is happening this Wednesday in Bannerman Park, and we have a big celebration planned.
It's excellent news. I have not seen a picture of the statue, and the artist behind it is Sheila Coultis. But we did have a call last week. Jen, I want to bounce this off you. A gentleman named Brian called, and he said the piece of art is absolutely beautiful, but on the clipboard that she's holding are the names of the donors as opposed to names of women who got to vote, given her efforts. So what do you know about that?
Well, first of all, there's always somebody to tell you that you're doing something wrong, of course. I don't know this man or really what he's talking about. On the clipboard of the statue are the executive of the Women's Franchise League, of which Armine Nutting-Gosling was the president, which is so appropriate, right? And then we've got a few donors. And then my own name is at the bottom, which is so lovely of the board to recognize my service in that way. And we're not ashamed of that in the least, because unlike some people who can snap their fingers and build a statue, it took us 4 years to raise all that money. So, of course, we're going to utilize all the efforts we can. Some outstanding individuals really showed some tremendous leadership in helping us finally reach our goal, and we're so pleased to recognize those women. It's also a reflection, I think, of the kind of power that comes together when women work together, which is very resonant of the actual suffrage movement back in the day. Armine Nutting-Gosling may be the recognized leader of the movement, but she certainly wasn't alone. It was the power of women coming together to help bring us the vote 100 years ago. And similarly, over 300 people have come together, donated, and worked on this project to help us raise her up on Wednesday.
Can you tell us a bit more about her? I know she's originally from Quebec, and I think came here to be, I'll call headmaster at the Church of England's girls' school. Maybe principal was the proper term here. Can you tell us more about her?
Oh, my goodness. You actually know more than most people do about her. She moved here and got married to a man named Gilbert Gosling, who eventually became the mayor of the city of St. John's. And they had 6 children, 2 of which died in infancy. And that also colored her world because she was very involved in working to alleviate poverty for children and also in maternal health. She also founded what would later become our first SPCA. You know that horse fountain in Bowring Park? Mm-hmm. Well, she was the one that led the efforts to have those put in throughout St. John's to give water to the horses, and there's even a little opening at the bottom for the stray dogs. She was just a tremendous humanitarian in so many ways. But of course, what she is perhaps best known for was her efforts to lead the Women's Franchise League. She was one of the founders of the Ladies' Reading Room, where women created to have a place to debate and talk about current affairs. They weren't allowed to go to the speeches that the men were having, so they opened their own club, and she was part of that. And then, of course, after World War I, she was the president of the Newfoundland Women's Franchise League that collected over 20,000 signatures in the 1920s across every outport of Newfoundland to petition government to finally grant women the right to vote and hold office. They only achieved that in 1925, and when all women on the island of Newfoundland were granted the right to vote who were over the age of 25. Unfortunately, Labrador would not receive this until many years later.
I believe the right for women to vote municipally was achieved in the early 20s, maybe 21, 22, and not till 25 on the provincial front. You mentioned Labrador. Nobody in Labrador voted in an election until 1946.
That's right, exactly. And it's funny you mentioned the 1921 anniversary because, of course, this is when all this started for us. We ran a whole year called Votes for Women 100 back in 2021, where we did a whole bunch of activities. And one of the things we did was we produced a play about Armine's life that was commissioned by Trudy Morgan Cole called The Mirror. And I think it was then that when Armine was in our thoughts and our hearts, and the Deputy Mayor, Sheila O'Leary, had been really vocal in the years previous, saying, hey, there's no statues to women anywhere in this city. And somebody thought, I think it was our board member, Dr. Margot Dooley, she said, well, wouldn't Armine Nutting-Gosling be a perfect one to have as the first statue? And that's when we got to work. And the other thing I remember vividly is it was COVID when we were doing all this planning, and we all had our meeting in Bannerman Park one day wearing masks. And the beautiful and joyful counselor Debbie Hanlon was on our steering committee at that time. And we have a fantastic picture of Debbie standing with her arms in the air saying, "This is where our Mean statue will go." And it's just incredible to be looking back at that now 4 years later and seeing that it's finally there.
So people refer to that type of inequality regarding the right to vote as one thing, but I'm trying to recall what I read some while back. We're also talking about wages for women and working conditions and those types of things, which was a big part of some of her efforts when she arrived here and was working with the girls' school. I think maybe some educational issues were also part of things that she was trying to drive forward.
Absolutely. There is so much information on our Mean. We could take up your whole show to talk about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to direct your listeners to our brand new website for the statue. It's called raiseherup.ca. On there, you can see a timeline, all kinds of information. There's even a nice 12-minute video about her life. And, of course, coming out soon from Boulder Books is going to be Dr. Dooley's new book, which is all about the suffrage movement, including Armine Nutting-Gosling, and that is going to be released this year. So there's lots of focus on this, and your listeners can hear about it. But can I tell you what's happening on Wednesday?
Sure.
Because that's why I'm calling, because we want to invite everybody to the park. We are throwing a celebration, and what that means is it's going to be a free concert at lunchtime in Bannerman Park. The site is not where the folk festival happens. So it's over next to where the statue pavilion is, and that's just behind the playground. We're going to have Anil, Lady Lupin, the St. John's Women's Mi'kmaq Circle, the Spectrum Queer Choir, the Thra Narasa Di School of Bharatanatyam dance group, and our own Votes for Women 100 chorus and Anil. So all kinds of music and celebration from some amazing people. And then, of course, we have the official unveiling ceremony where we're going to be honored to have dignitaries such as Her Honor, the Honorable Jo Marie Aylward, our Lieutenant Governor, our new Minister of Women and Gender Equality, Sherry Gambin-Walsh, and our Deputy Mayor, Sheila O'Leary. And then at the end of all that, at 2 o'clock, we're going to do the official unveiling and show everybody the pavilion and the statue and the signage. In the park, there's also going to be our community partners with their booths. Other women and feminist-focused organizations are all going to be there with some information. The Ukrainian National Federation Avalon branch is going to open up their canteen, and in fact they're accepting pre-orders. If you want to order a lovely Ukrainian lunch, you can pre-order it up until 10 o'clock tonight, and then you can go and pick it up on the day of. So if you're coming to the park, we recommend you bring a chair or a blanket, your sunscreen and your hat, a cash or credit card to purchase from the canteen and vendors, and your biggest smiles to help us raise her up.
I appreciate the time this morning, Jen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. It's Jen Dion, Artistic Director at Persistence Theatre Company. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're talking Save the Train. Apparently there's a change to the rally that was scheduled to take place, and then we're going to be speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 1. Eliza, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Just want to call and talk about the change of the time of the meeting. I think last week we were under the impression that it was 6 p.m., but it's 4 p.m., and we have changed from doing a rally in front of the town hall to just going into the meeting at 4. So I just want to get the word out there this morning that the rally has changed. We won't be doing the rally, but we will, whoever can attend and make it into the room, because it's a small space there where you can attend the meeting, that's what we're going to do.
Just tell the folks what you're meeting about, just to remind you, in case they didn't hear that call last week.
Well, we want to find a way to save the train that's on Station Road. We know it's in hard shape, and it was left a long time, but rather than getting rid of it, removing it, we want to try to save it and preserve it, secure it first, and then look for the means to be able to restore it bit by bit. We know it would be a long process maybe, but But if we're not given the opportunity, we won't know what we can do. And I think the decision that was made, the public wasn't aware of it, that type of decision. And now we're asking for the opportunity to do something to save that train.
Just remind the folks what the decision was.
Well, the decision by council was to put out a tender to remove the train. And that decision was made at a meeting of May the 20th, and it was just put on social media, like a couple of snippets from the minutes. And one of them was to put out a tender to remove it. So it was kind of a shocking thing to learn for the first time, and it's kind of puzzling that it didn't go out to the public for any kind of discussion about saving the train or just letting her go. And we all know that if we lose that train, there's no more trains going to come here to be restored, because people who have them in different parts of the province, of course, they want to keep them and they want to restore them, and they want to use them for some sort of museum or some sort of business, or like the sky's the limit. There's all kinds of ideas out there. So we're not going to rally today because in good faith, we're hoping to go to that meeting today and hear that we're going to be given a chance.
Fair enough. And keep us in the loop when you hear more from the Municipal Council.
I will.
Thank you, Eliza.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Saying more to the PC member for Tops of Paradise. He's the opposition critic for education. That's Paul Dinn. Good morning, Paul. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
No, I just want to call in. I mean, there's a lot happening in education. There's no doubt about it. And we're approaching another school year end. And lots of questions on where we are and what's been done over that year. And I know, as an example, parents from Lark Hall Academy and Leary's Brook have been voicing their displeasure in a lot of things that were promised this time last year that haven't gone through. And I know government has, been preaching about the increase in their K-12 enrollment, which is good. But again, what supports do we have for that? Educational psychologists, as an example, their ratio was 1 to 500, and it's recently dropped to 1 to 300, which is still looking at psychologists that are in multiple schools. But the most recent piece that's been in the news, and I've spoken to Molly Clark on this a couple of times, and that's around the speech-language pathologists. And, not being able to find employment where we really need it. And when we're talking about children, preschool, early years in school, you need to set them up to succeed. And it's questionable whether we're doing that in the way we're addressing those who need speech-language pathologists, who are on wait lists and waiting. And, when you look at stats around things like violence and mental health development, 70% of that, 70% of mental health development that occurs in childhood and early adolescence. So I listened to Trent Langdon Friday, and I've listened to others speak out on this. And this has a lifelong impact on children. If you don't set them up to succeed and they don't have access to what they need, such as speech-language pathologists. And this is not a question of not having them. They are there. We have speech-language pathologists who are there, many who are working out of province, many who are working through technology out of province, and many who have applied and have been looking for work within the province. And from what I understand, some of these speech-language pathologists have been offered casual employment when we need full-time permanent individuals in this system. And when they're offered this casual employment, they're told you may not get the hours. There may not, but we can hire you as a casual. So there's a problem with the system when we have a skill set, a professional that's needed to develop, our most valuable resource, which are our children, and yet we cannot seem to find a job for them. It makes no sense. And I just want to lend my voice to this, and I've reached out. I've never, the minister has not responded to this, and here we are again. Like I said, another school year coming to an end, and government should be in planning now for the next school year in terms of working out these shortages, these issues, whether they're infrastructure, whether they're professionals that are needed. These need to be worked out, and I don't see anything that gives me an indication or any level of confidence that they got a handle on this. And the ones who are going to suffer are our children, and as well our teaching professionals who are in the classroom, who are dealing with children who need help outside of their ability.
Yeah, I mean, we can't pretend that teachers are going to be able to deal with things that are for specialized professionals like speech pathologists. So the fact that, when we talk about the shortage of family doctors, it's exactly that. They're just not out there, but speech pathologists are. So someone who said they work for the department, it was a made-up email address, there was no name attached to it, and pretty much told me, I'll just paraphrase, is I don't know what I'm talking about. Why are you saying that there are no speech pathologists out there? They work in the schools. Blah. Trying to downplay this is pretty idiotic in my mind. If we have a speech pathologist or speech therapist working in a school, they're also working in 3 or 4 or 5 other schools. And you can go to a school with a list of people who need help as long as 40. So just times that by 5 and pretend that one person can adequately take care of even a slim percentage of that is mind-bogglingly dumb. Now, maybe this person just likes taking pot shot at me, but if they are out there ready to be hired, whether they be working in the private sector or offered casual jobs, we are setting kids up for failure. There's no argument to be made by the public, the government, the department, as to if there are speech pathologists out there to hire, let's hire them. Not everyone has the money to go to a private offering, right? Not everyone has the insurance that might cover some or all of this type of therapy. If they fall behind when they enter into the school system, I mean, add into the rest of their life their socialization skills and all the rest of it. If you get off on the wrong foot in school, it's hard to catch up. And if I'm waiting, I get assessed and diagnosed, and then I wait for a therapist, I could be in grade 3 or 4 before I start getting the type of treatment required. Yeah. What do you think has happened in the kindergarten 1, 2, and 3? Probably nothing very good, academically speaking.
No, you certainly have a good handle on it. And when you look at the data and when you listen to the speech language pathologists and they talk about the numbers that are in the schools and the numbers that need help, and then you talk about the waiting period. I mean, that's a key indicator right there. That when I hear that children are waiting, not just months, some are years, a year or two, to get access to a speech language pathologist, then that's right there is a red flag. Right there is a red flag that we don't have enough speech language pathologists in the system. And as you said, it's not because they're not available. They are there willing to go to work, full-time, permanent, and, full stop. And to offer them casual, and to me, it's like hush money. I think that they offer them the jobs to keep them quiet. But we need them full-time, permanent in the system, and especially if government's bragging about increasing K-12 enrollment, then we need them more. And, to have them moving around and chasing around from school to school, similar to our educational psychologists, that will tell you that we need more in the system. And just like you said, setting kids up to succeed, you need it, or the alternative is you're setting them up to fail. And at these early years, kids need that. And especially when you look at, and I could go on about education all day because there's so many facets to it. When you look at just childcare even, right? We don't get the full picture on childcare. We know that there's not enough seats out there. We know that there's lots of parents with young kids who need to go in there, and some of those who need access to professionals like speech language pathologists. They are just not going to keep up when they hit hit the grade schools, and that's not good. That's not good on the outcomes we expect.
Of course,
not
and
at all.
I will add this. Since this story made it into the media, I've had a lot of families reach out to me, and some of their stories are heartbreaking. So, on top of academics, there's one family in particular says that the speech issue is pretty dominant with their child, and as a result, because we know kids get picked on, I'll say, for a variety of reasons, this poor child is being picked on endlessly and mocked because of their speech impediment and some of the things that they can't follow some pretty simple instructions, so they get called a lot of really hurtful names. And I know sometimes people think, boy, you got to grow up and get over it. If you're also battling with something that you have no control over, and other kids who probably don't even realize how mean they're being, or maybe they do. So on top of academics, this poor child is struggling mightily and is waiting and waiting and waiting and still does not have an appointment. And they've been on a wait list now for 19 months.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's bullying.
Absolutely.
That's bullying. And what does that lead to? That eventually leads to violence in our schools. Those kids don't learn any better. And we need to address this right from day one. And it doesn't seem to be happening. And I'll shout out to the minister. Get on the news and tell us exactly what the plan is for this, because kids are suffering, families are suffering. And if we talk about human resource plans for this province, well, we got to have those human resources. And if we're not setting them up to succeed, then they're going to fail, and we're not going to have them. But families need these people, and they're there. They're there waiting for the job offer, and they're not getting it. They're not getting it.
I don't understand. Paul, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
I do want to toss out one thing, Patty.
Sure.
So at the request of a lot of parents who have reached out to me, I did it last year on childcare, I'll be hosting a town hall next Tuesday, the 24th, up at Topsail United Church. It's at 7 p.m., and it's going to cover education and childcare. I know it's a very broad topic. So if one shows up or 100 shows up, I will be there to listen to their issues. So anyone who wants to show up, and it can go from infrastructure to speech language pathologists to childcare to pre-K. We'll listen and see if we can get some answers. So hopefully they'll show up, and I want to hear from the people who are dealing with it.
Appreciate the time, Paul. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All the best.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That one there's head scratcher. Just information for those in and around town. This is coming from the St. John's Regional Fire Department. Due to the high fire hazard rating for our region, as identified by the province, a fire ban is currently in effect within the region, which includes the City of St. John's, the City of Mount Pearl, and the Town of Paradise. The ban remains in effect until June the 19th. An update will be provided later that day. And as a reminder, this includes outdoor wood-burning appliances, charcoal barbecues, and open fires. If you have a propane fire pit and a propane barbecue, of course you can use them, but the fire ban is in place, so says the St. John's Regional Fire Department. Let's take a break. Don't go away. And welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. John, you're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. Enjoying the sunshine.
Like you would.
Just calling to follow up. I spoke to you about a week and a half ago, I guess, discussing some issues I had with Choices for Youth. And just wanted to follow up because our conversation was around some of the employment and issues and so forth. But I wanted to follow up on some things since then and before that I had heard in regards to some of the services or lack thereof services for some youth. And some issues that have been raised, and I've been contacted by current, former youth, current, former employees there, and I didn't realize that some of the issues that were there in regards to uninvestigated sexual assaults by staff members on youth, that the staff member was let go, but there was no report or anything done to police. Things like that are ongoing. Youth accused of theft and things like that they had not doing, being let go of programs that were incorrect. Some youth being treated differently than other youth because of socioeconomic backgrounds. And I know that what we see a lot in Choices is that the youth that are being served are stereotyped into a pigeonhole. However, choices is a lot larger than that. It's just not people on the lower income level of the socioeconomic scheme that are being served by choices. It's also people at various points and so forth that, for various reasons, whether it be drugs, alcohol, in with a bad crowd, things like that, just got tied up. That can happen irregardless of socioeconomic background. We just think it's more prevalent in low income, which is not always the case. Low income just means that you don't have the same access to lawyers and things like that someone with affluence may have. So,
okay, a couple of quick questions. So would it not be predominantly children coming from poor socioeconomic backgrounds that would avail of services at Choices? Because you're right, your bank account doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you might be running with a bad crowd, you might be addicted to drugs or alcohol, but wouldn't it predominantly be youth from poorer backgrounds?
In the past, it was. In the past, no doubt, definitely was. However, that has changed. The demographics have changed. A lot of it is due to the inability for youth to find sustainable employment in our province right now. It is very difficult for youth to find employment. So a lot of them are trying to avail of programs that are offering employment through, like, Choices for Youth, for example. So they try to avail of those programs to get themselves in the door. However, that means for every youth like that there might be a youth that is disadvantaged that may need the program more. Some of the things that went on, and I can speak personally of a person that worked there who said, "I only want the cream of the crop employees. I don't want the struggling people." And I have other staff that can confirm these conversations that were said that, we don't want the low of the low. We want the better youth, right? So that's the type of thing. And the problem with the youth that are a lot of cases that avail of these programs is they've never had anybody advocate for them. They're not familiar how to advocate for themselves. So therefore, when something happens, they don't raise their voice because they're of the belief that no one's listening to them. And that's what I heard a lot over the last week to 10 days from youth is that, someone's finally bringing up issues that we had concerns with, but no one was listening to us.
Back to a point you made about allegations of abuse, sexual or otherwise. I mean, this is not an internal matter for Choices for Youth. These are allegations that need to be pursued by law enforcement, aren't they?
But correctly, you are correct. However, they weren't. We're not. And I have both the youth that were involved and the staff members names. I'm not letting that go. No, I will continue to follow up into the proper avenues that it should have been addressed the first time. I'm
not going to downplay that because it's obviously serious, but what would stop anyone who's on the receiving end of said abuse to file a formal complaint with law enforcement themselves? Are you suggesting that they're afraid or they don't know what to do, or what would be holding them back?
They were afraid. They were threatened with things like having funding cut off by someone there. So their voices were downplayed. And threats and intimidation, which I did not recognize at the time until I went through my own personal thing and had the same type of things and can relate exactly the same type of issues that I was confronted with and how it was dealt with, and the same type of issues that some of these youth were confronted with and how they were dealt with.
We did reach out to Choices, and regarding human resources, we had no luck trying to get them to come on the program to talk about those types of matters. But this is different, and no one's going to be able to say, "Well, privacy," because we don't need names. We just need circumstances and to understand what protocols and processes are in place. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and I do have, and I told youth that have contacted me, I will protect their names as much as I possibly can. In regards, I'm not going to give their names to anybody, but I will give them the channels up to how they can actually go and pursue this as a legal matter for them. Because a lot of these youth that were turned away or had issues and so forth, they're not a large group. However, their voices aren't being heard, and there's a lot of policies and procedures that are on there. And I had requested from Choices for Youth a copy of the Human Resource Policies Procedure. They will not give any information out in regards to policies and procedures. They will not. So you can attempt this also, but I've attempted it. I have names, telephone numbers of youth, of staff members. Over the next few months, I think you're going to see more things come out. We haven't heard anything on how their funding is coming along, because at that time when we were all laid off, there was a whole bunch of youth that were impacted too who lost jobs. We haven't heard any regards to how their funding is going, how they got, if they have received any more, what it's being used for. It's they're very vague and not transparent in their conducting of business. And all the things that I've seen and posts that I've seen have led to, it's definitely some questions need to be asked and some answers need to be raised. You can go back and look. There was a case a few years ago where the executive director was accused, and they spent over $1 million investigating it of a sexual assault. And they spent over $1 million investigating it. So that was $1 million that never went into programming your youth, and it was very, So it's a lot of things that you can discover once you start to do some investigative digging.
I appreciate the time, John. Thank you. As troubling as it is.
All right, Patty. It is troubling to me. I'm very much a youth advocate and have been my whole life, and some of these things came as quite a disturbing shock to me, I gotta say.
Thank you, John.
I do hope they address it at some point correctly.
Me too. And we will invite them on one more time.
Yeah, and thank you for your time, and have a good day, and hopefully you get to enjoy the sunshine this afternoon.
Thank you, John. All the best.
All right, take care.
You too. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Good day, Mr. Daly.
Good day to you.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the dentist's office here where I live, and I've been a patient for about, 12 or 15 years.
Okay.
And when this came on board, like I say, it took them almost 6 or 7 months to finalize if they're going to take their patients. But I had to go out of town, like so many other people had to go out of town while waiting for them to come on board. And I had to drive 175 kilometers to and 175 kilometers back. So initially, then I made an appointment for my area, which I've been receiving. I had an appointment for August the 5th this year, and I called them there last week asking if there's any chance for cancellation. So they came back and said, no, we got no cancellation. And by 5 minutes after that, I said, well, I got an appointment for the 5th of August. By 5 minutes after that, they called back. Well, she said, we don't have a cancellation. We also are going to cancel your appointment that you have for the 5th of August. I said, why? Well, if you're going to Clarenville getting your work done, I'd like for also you to keep on going there. Now, that wasn't a very nice thing to say to me.
Not at all. Just say that again for me. I've got a little buzz in my headset here. What did they say to you?
Well, when I called up, I wanted to check on my appointment for my appointment for the 5th of August this year.
Right.
And I was a patient for 12, 15 years, but I had to go out of town because they never came on board with the program. It took them 7 months. So then he called back 5 minutes after. See, not only that we don't have a cancellation, we're also going to cancel your appointment that you got for the 5th of August with us. I said, why? Well, he said, if you can go to Clarenville and get your work done, he said, we would like also for you to keep on going there.
There's got to be something more to this, is there?
Well, not on my part. No, not on my part. No, I did go to Clarenville because, like I say, it took them 7 or 8 months to get on board with this dentist program once it's extractions. And not only that, a lot of people left from my area went down to Clarenville. No, I just called to say my appointments were 5th of August. Well, then my profile had to be transferred from Carnival back to my initial one to here in where I'm living. No, just simply just got to keep on going where you're going to. So I don't know if I got a leg to stand on. There's someone called. Did he have the right to cancel my appointment for 5th of August just because I went down to Tarnville and I was a patient of them for 12 years?
Well, I think the short answer to that is they do have that right. That doesn't make it right, though.
No, that's what I mean. That's why I'm putting the point across.
Yeah, I mean, for them, it's a bill that they'll submit to be reimbursed is who cares who they're doing the work on? Like, why would they admonish you for choosing to get some care while they were trying to get their ducks in a row? Like, again.
Exactly. So, probably there's more people like to listen to me today that went through the same issue. And the day that I was there was about at least 12 or 15 people from the same area that I live in. Due to because it took them 7 or 8 months to come on board with this dental program.
Yeah, I mean, that's not your fault. I mean, we do know that dentists and dental hygienists right across the country were humming and hawing about whether or not they were actually going to sign on to this program. And then, lo and behold, when the federal government figured that the rollout was not working as intended, then they told us all of a sudden that even if your dental office does not enroll formally, you can still accept patients and have them covered by the National Dental Plan. So this has been a little bit flawed right from the get-go. And this is a terrible example, though. What you're telling me is, so you found a dentist elsewhere? Well, stay there. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah,
and I was a patient with them for 12 years.
Sounds pretty heavy-handed and a little bit. I don't know what the right word is, but it's a little bit oblivious to the amount of travel you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry to hear that happen.
They say that I wanted to voice my opinion and let people know. I had my appointment for the 5th. They said no. If you went down to Sarah, get it done. Keep on going.
Yeah.
So that's my thing this morning.
Yeah, it's easy enough when you're on the other side of that phone line and you'd probably either A, don't care, or B, don't realize what you've done to someone who has to travel, as opposed to just go to the dental clinic where they've long gone, that's in their own community.
Exactly.
So that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear it happened.
Okay, my point put across.
Yep, it is.
Have a nice day.
The same to you. Thanks. Why would that be? And just want to throw it up there. Can Danny wait for after news? Because we only got a minute or so. So it is important to remember that people are getting caught off guard when they go to the clinic and they get whatever done, and then they thought there wasn't going to be a bill, and lo and behold, there is one. If you know exactly what you're going to the dentist for, or even if you have some just general questions, and this is advice that's coming right from the Dental Association themselves, call the clinic, ask to speak with the administrative staff to see whether or not you can anticipate a bill as part of what they call a copay. So do that before you go to protect yourself from that little bit of sticker shock when you've got to pay something. In addition to that, it is now open to all ages. There was some staggering that was going on here. It was 65 plus, and then they went from 54 to 65, and then 18 and under, people with disabilities. It's now open. Eligibility is pretty clear. If you have a net family income of $90,000 or less, you're eligible. They say, and I still suggest you make a telephone call, if your net adjusted family income is less than $70,000, you're not supposed to see any copay. We've heard reports that is actually happening to that economic group as well. So know what you're getting yourself into. Avail of it, though, by all means. And then, some of the pushback I hear about, well, I'm not eligible, I don't feel like paying for it. All right. Same thing when people are talking about the National Pharmacare Plan. And they started with contraception and with diabetes. I hear people continue to tell me, look, why am I paying for that? I'm not eligible. In pharmacare, it's not like dental care. If you have an MCP card in your pocket, you're eligible. It's as simple as that. There's no means test on the pharmacare plan like there is on the dental care plan. All right, let's go ahead and take a break for the news right on time, seeing how the boss is in the other booth. When we come back, Danny's there to talk oil and gas. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Danny, you're on the air.
Yeah, talking about the White Rose South. She told out to the crime banks. Now, what's going on? Is there any more projects?
I'm sorry, what's the question, Danny?
Is there any more projects to go with the oil and gas?
Not anything officially on the books just yet, no.
How about the turnover?
What about it?
Are there going to be a platform for that?
Well, the Terra Nova uses an FPSO.
Yeah. Anyways, let's just say turnover platform.
Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure, but okay.
Yeah.
How's everything going, Danny?
Pardon me?
How's everything going?
Good.
Yeah, good. Did you work in the oil and gas sector in the past, or are you just curious about it?
I finished school and went to work for auto body mechanics.
Okay.
With my dad, and then I left that and I went down Harvey's Shore.
Okay. And how long you been retired?
I'm 63 now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you making time for the show. Anything else you want to talk about this morning, Danny?
That's it.
Okay, buddy. Appreciate your time. Hope you have a nice day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. I just see passing through my social media feeds that former President Unifor, Buzz Hargrove, has passed. Now, of course, when you're in that type of leadership position, people have very distinctive takes on his life and energies and actions, but Buzz Hargrove has passed. Okay. Well, he was the national president of the CAW, right? Canadian Auto Workers, that's right. Okay, let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 1. James, you're on the air.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
How's everything today?
Excellent today. How about you?
Very well. Beautiful day out there. So, I'm just calling today to comment, basically, or maybe get a comment on the homeless shelter situation here in St. John's. I'm in the system right now, and it's quite a difficult system to navigate through. There seems to be, in particular, some particular homeless shelters where the person's in charge or the person managing or working there basically chooses and who, at their discretion, who should be allowed in, who can sleep there, who cannot sleep there, whether they like their hair that day or like their tone of voice or whatever. It just seems to be a discriminate way of running a shelter system here in St. John's, and I know so many people that are sleeping on the street because of a lack of entry into a shelter. Then there's several shelters here that should be able to take them in, and they're not because of the people that are working there just decide that they don't like this person and this person not getting in the shelter. I truly believe that's a crime. I really do.
So you're saying that the shelter's not at capacity, they're just picking and choosing?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Some of that is a direct result of how we manage emergency shelters in this province, very much unlike provinces across the country. As opposed to the government owning and operating a shelter, we have so many private sector landlords who are in the emergency shelter business. And so I don't know if there's any rules in place regarding their the requirement to accept who needs emergency shelter versus the picking and choosing. But you're telling me that they're doing it. Whether or not they're allowed, I'm really not sure, to be honest.
Oh, they're doing it. I don't know. Like, I know that I've lived in other provinces across Canada. I know that it's not allowed in Ontario or Quebec. I know that. I see that the way that the some of the particular the shelters like say Patrick Street or Miller, different areas where there's a person that's been there for a while who may have worked there for quite some time is basically in control of a lot of people's lives. I truly believe that to be incorrect. No one person should be in charge of another person's life when it comes to whether they have a place to sleep, eat, drink water, or use a washroom. I mean, I had to use the washroom 2 nights ago, and I was, and the Tim Hortons was closed, and I couldn't go in. I begged the shelter, please, just give me 2 minutes in the bathroom. No way. They sent me away. No way. He kept saying, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I just want to use the washroom. No, you're not in the shelter. You can't use it. I'm like, okay. How do you explain that as a humanity concern? And these people are supposed to be in this, compassionate business of helping homeless or helping people in need of help, and they're just they got their minds hell bent on saying that we're in control of you, and you will do as we say, and you'll do it when we say and where we say it, and that's the way I see it. And a lot of homeless people here in St. John's, not a lot, all of them, say the same thing. They have way too much control, and people are afraid to even go into the shelter, even attempt to go into a shelter now, because they're, if you don't leave now, we're going to call the police, and we're just going, well, we just want a place to sleep. We just want to use the washroom. Like the other night, just desperately need to use the washroom. No, if you don't leave, we're calling the police. I just want to use the washroom for 2 minutes. Doesn't matter. Leave. You're not staying here. And that's a fact. That's what they're doing every day to these people here. It's not right.
Fair enough. So, James, all that being said, you are living on the street.
Yeah. Well, I could go to 10th St. Clair when there's room there, when you can get there. I mean, but that's not that it's a dangerous place, but it's not a great place. I wouldn't want to send my sister or my mother to a place it's not a place you want to send a week, if that's the way I can say it. You know what I mean?
I understand.
Basically that's what's happening. I don't know why the what most people call them, the homeless are calling the power trip that these people are on in these houses. The people that run the houses or the homeless shelters that assume that they control our lives just because they have a bed they should be giving us, but they're basically saying it's like you have to work for it. We have to like you first before you can get this bed. We have to appreciate who you are, and you have to make sure that you appreciate who we are and love us, and it's what it's come down to. It's like nobody wants to bother anymore. They just say, well, we'll just sleep on the street.
I appreciate you making time for the show. I'll do some follow-up here regarding how the Mercy shelters are operating and those types of decisions that you spoke about this morning, James. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, sir, that's everything. I appreciate your time and the platform as well. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Sir.
Bye-bye. I wonder just how much advancement has been made on the homelessness file. So, we do know that there's lots of talk at the federal level, and I heard an interview with Ron Ellsworth with Tim Powers talk about just how many home applications had been approved here in the city last year. Looks like we're certainly doing more and quicker than in years past, but the Mercy Shelter conversation, I think, is worthy of more discussion. Now, of course, first things first, if we're talking about homelessness, we just have a pretty flawed approach to it in the first place, as far as I'm concerned. We just kind of pass people around and maybe they get a spot in a Mercy shelter. But what is not available in a Mercy shelter is any sense of what's next insofar as hope and the possibility to be housed. There's lots of reasons as to why someone may indeed find themselves without a roof over their head, and it costs tons of money. That's one thing. Like if you added up every single dollar in any of these social assistance pots of money, any of the monies that are incurred by people who are homeless, whether it be with the healthcare system or possibly the criminal justice system, we're just spending a ton and really not advancing the cause. Things aren't getting any better. And some people, I think, are under the illusion that this is all something new. It's not. We see more and more people moving into urban centres right across the country. Why? Because that's where there are at least some supports. And when all of a sudden there were people living in a tent across the street from the Confederation building, then it got some more attention. And then what happened? Not much. We passed people around. The tents were removed across the street from the Confederation building, then they popped up in Bannerman Park. And then they were taken down there, and then they popped up somewhere else. So if we're going to be content to just chase people around, and so the tents just are erected in a different part of the city or a different part of the metro region, and to think that all of a sudden, because the tents are not close by where you live or in your eye line, that maybe the issue's gotten better or something has changed, it hasn't. And add to it, when we talk about things like the Comfort Inn, still some questions about what the future holds, given the fact that the family that owned the building, that was leasing it to the government for 3 years, we didn't buy it, we leased it, and now it's held by a different company. And their prospects into the future, I know conversations are ongoing, but what we still don't really have there is a firm way to measure success. And if we don't have that, then we're just crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. Just hoping for the best is probably not the best idea on things like this. Let's see here. Let's take a break. When we come back, there's plenty of time to speak with you. Whatever you want to talk about is what I want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Marcus, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I was just want to put a shout out there to if anybody's seen a wallet between Brian's and Latins on Topsail Road. It's a black wallet. I fell there this morning and I lost my wallet. So if anybody's seen it, we greatly appreciate it. If you can call VOCM, let them know. There's $100 in it for somebody if they found it. Thank you.
Decent reward. Marcus, are you okay from after the fall?
Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, good to hear. So if you picked up a wallet in that area, there's a $100 reward. If you want to return it to Marcus, give us a call.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck. Bye-bye. Very quickly, while Dave's getting organized out there, this is, as they say, hot off the presses. Today, the 16th of June, this is from the PUB, the Public Utilities Board. Here's the heads up. Electricity rates will increase for customers of Newfoundland Power and most customers of Newfoundland Labrador Hydro by an average of 7% on the 1st of July. This is after all the rate application submissions had been made to the PUB. All right, so number one, Newfoundland Power's general rate application, an increase of approximately 8.5%. In the general rate application, the board reduced the cost, which could have recovered customers by $14 million through a lower return for Newfoundland Power than proposed. A reduction in the proposed operating costs and the exclusion of short-term incentive payments to the executive and directors. Those reductions were the primary driver in lowering the estimated rate increase from 10.6% to 8.5%. Hydro rate increase. In accordance with the direction of the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador for domestic customer rates of 2.25% to provide recovery for hydro costs, which includes Muskrat Falls. Number three, the annual July the 1st adjustment. There is an adjustment every July the 1st. This one approximately 4.5%, and that's primarily for Newfoundland Power to recover power supply costs from hydro. So the basics for residential customers on the island, an increase coming on the 1st of July, 7% across the board. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Tara. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
I'm good, my love. I'm good. I've been meaning to call you for the past week or two for something very specific. Maybe you can answer the reason behind a shore-based manager at the Portugal Cove Belle Island Terminal here in Portugal Cove. What is the reasoning behind having a shore-based manager is my question. And the reason I'm bringing that question up, boldly now is because about a week or two ago, there was a gentleman that approached the ticket booth, had apparently fallen. I didn't personally see the fall. I know the gentleman that fell. Anyway, he had fallen down at the ferry terminal, and instead of the shore-based manager contacting or getting 911 to the terminal to pick up this gentleman, they allowed another resident to put him aboard a truck and drive him on the boat. They get him on the boat, get him upstairs. This is when the veteran was, in service for us. And blood is running down his face. It's coming out of his hand. He's clearly unstable on his feet. He was told to just stand there. And I had said to the person, I said, absolutely not. He needs to be sitting. I went and I sat down, Patty, and I didn't have it in the heart to know and to leave that gentleman by himself sitting where the elevator door is. So my instinct was to get up, and I went and I stood with this person, whom I do know. I do know who he is, and I know him personally. Blood is still running down his face. It's coming out of his hand. I had to ask a lady to watch him for a moment so I can go seek a worker to get some ice. He literally smashed his face off the pavement. It's really bothersome because he should have never, ever been put aboard the veteran, period. Blood coming out of his face, blood coming out of his hand. He clearly just hit his head. A paramedic, 911, should have been called to pick up this gentleman in the cove, not put on the boat. Shame on the shore-based manager. He should have known better than to allow this man on a boat pretty much by himself. The whole way across on the ferry, I literally stood in front of this gentleman because, Patty, if he hadn't had me standing there, he would have face planted on the floor. I called 911 while on the ferry, so a paramedic did meet us on the boat on Belle Island side. But that should have never been the case. A paramedic and 911 should have been phoned by the shore-based manager. And my question will always remain until I get an answer as to why he took those actions by allowing this man bleeding profusely from his face, couldn't stand properly, was in and out of consciousness, allowed on the ferry, and did not phone 911.
It's a fair question. Part of the shore-based manager's responsibility is responding to incidents. It's right there in the emergency response portfolio. So, Tara, do you happen to know what caused the injury?
This specific person, I think, Patty, had been drinking. He did have a few drinks. I could mildly smell alcohol on him. But he also has a number of other medical issues. But that's not the point. The point of the matter is he was seen falling, smacking his head or his face off the ground, bleeding, and instead of the shore-based manager calling for help, like 911, he allowed this traveler on the ferry.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to shame someone for who might have been drinking. I was just, curious if someone tripped down the stairs or there was something that impeded his. So that's all I was getting at, not whether or not he was
drinking. I understand where you were coming from, Patty, my love, and I would never have suggested otherwise. But other people out there, I made that comment not to you. I made it so people are aware that it doesn't matter, whether he had a few drinks and he was drunk or he wasn't or whatever the case was. He had fallen, and it really, really upsets me that the shore-based manager, whom I thought had a duty to serve the public and to make sure that people were safe, to do the likes of what he did.
Which is odd, because if I'm responsible for operations, then every single time I'm going to err on the side of caution. Because what happens if something takes a distinct turn for the worse, even just in that short passage across the tickle, which is possible. I mean, a head injury is nothing to fool around with. Blood is one thing, but hitting your head can come with some complications. So if it's me, just so I protect myself, just so I protect the operations, I'm going to call 911 every time. If it looks like there's an injury that requires a paramedic on the Belle Island side, then it required a paramedic on the Portugal Cove side.
Absolutely agree. And I know, because I'm living through a horrible concussion and whiplash currently from hitting my head. So I know, and maybe that's why I had reacted the way that I had reacted. I'm not so sure. But it just still puzzles me as to how he allowed him, and he helped put this gentleman aboard a truck so this truck could bring him on the boat. Failure. That's a complete failure. He should have never have done that. And, I made sure that he seek medical help when we arrived. But, yeah, I just wanted to know what the whole deal was about a shore-based manager, what their job for the Portugal Cove is.
Well, basically managing day-to-day operations. They're also involved, of course, with the vehicle loading and unloading. They talk about being the person who registers a maintenance that's required for equipment, manages the personnel, deals with safety, security, all those things. Because I remember I think it was when Fred Hutton got elected, that's when they launched this position. And so I remember reading about what that person was going to be responsible for, and it's pretty all-encompassing, managing the facility, the whole bit. Tara, before I run out of time, and I will follow up on this one with the Department of Transportation, are you, Tara Saunders, the wife of Buddy who went in the pond to pick up a World War I or a World War II armament or missile or a shell?
I am. It was, in fact, my husband Stuart that jumped over the boat while lobster fishing and retrieved a World War II missile.
Okay, and look, I don't know why he did it, but I'm sure you've asked. What was he thinking? Was he just curious or what?
I think it was a lot to do with curiosity. He's always wanted to see and touch a missile. So the opportunity was there. This missile was beside a lobster pot, and they worked quite hard to get it up. But failure to do so, he jumps over and he brings it aboard the boat, and Anyhow, yeah. Little did we know, though, Patty, that it was, it was live until a little while later when it was confirmed by authorities that it was, in fact, live. We thought it would have been a kind of a cool keepsake, but it's safely stored in a secure location now.
The proper thing. Tara, appreciate your time. I will do some follow-up on the incident that you called about.
Thank you so very much, Patty. I appreciate the time.
Anytime. All the best.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. When something is live, I don't know what it would take or what type of risk that actually poses, but that's an interesting story. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we'll be speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Elaine, you're on the air.
Oh, good day, Patty. How are you today?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
Not too bad. I'm wondering if you're able to help me. I'm having a lot of hard luck trying to get hold to the CRA. I'm actually into my third week trying to reach them, and they're saying they're busy, call back, and I'm not having no luck. Is there something going on with it, or?
I don't know.
I'm not aware.
Do you not have an online account with CRA?
Well, the thing is I do, but my password's been revoked because I tried a few times and it wasn't a correct password. And after so many times, they revoke your password. So in order to go in and get it set up again, I have to speak to someone in the office, but I'm not having no luck, and I'm needing some papers there, actually.
Well, I'm in the throes of dealing with CRA myself, so it's not easy. Okay. I wonder, is there an opportunity to possibly speak with someone at Service Canada for password reset? Because I think Service Canada used the same government account as CRA.
I did call, and they said no.
Okay.
And I have CRA. Yeah, so I don't know where else to turn, but I mean, like I say, I'm into my third week now, and this paper I'm needing, I needed it a couple of weeks ago. I got my thing extended there, but because I haven't got my taxes back. I was at the end of April before I filed my taxes, and so I'm really at a standstill. I don't know what else to do here, and I just thought that you guys may know what to do, right?
CRA is difficult to connect with. So did you say that you've called and left a message to get a return call, or you haven't been able to speak with somebody?
No, I can't even get through to speak to someone like that or to leave a message, no.
You haven't been able to just be on hold and wait for, as they say, the next available agent?
They don't have that option. That option is not there now.
It's not there now. Oh, well, that's helpful.
Yeah, exactly. So.
I don't really know, because, I mean, every now and then when someone tries to connect with me, see if I can help them connect with CRA, it might be the most difficult government to connect with.
God, I just can't get over it. I mean, like I said, I'm needing papers there. I'm into my third week calling, and that's calling like 5 and 6 times a day. That's not just once every other day, but no luck at all. Like, it just don't make sense for a government office to be like that, right? That hard to get through to.
Yeah, shouldn't be the way.
No.
There is one trick that people talk about is because of the time zone, if you call first thing in the morning, it's probably a better chance of calling throughout the regular course of the day. So that might give you some luck. So, I'm sorry?
I've done all that.
You've tried it all?
I've done all that. First thing in the morning, I've done it lunchtime, I've done it after slow times, I've done it, so no, there's no option there.
Yeah, what a nuisance. So I sometimes don't like doing this, but our elected officials are that for a reason. So a constituency assistant working at your MP's office, they might have a suggestion that I don't know about.
I've done that too, but here in Cornwall, we don't have touchings now. I forget the lady's name, but I did look it up online, and I had dealings with Goody when she was here. She was great. So it's just down the street from me. So I walked down actually a couple of last week, Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure which day. I think it was Friday. But anyhow, there's no one in the office. Lights out, no one there. So I don't know where else to turn.
Well, your new member is Carol Anstey. She's been recently elected in the Long Range Mountains. Let's see if I got her constituency number for you. Let's see here if I got something. Oh, that's not the right spot. Yeah, let's see here.
What is number?
I'm not finding a number for her, but I tell you what I will do is I will find a number for her office in the Long Range Mountains, and I'll have David relay it to you. How's that?
I appreciate that.
Oh,
So,
wait, no,
thank you.
I got it. All right, quick as that.
Yep.
So her main constituency office in Corner Brook, is that where you are, or Stephenville or St. Anthony?
I am, no, Corner Brook.
Corner
yep.
Brook it is. Okay, the telephone number, she's at 4951 Park Street, and the telephone number is 709
Yeah.
637
Yes.
4655.
Yeah. Call that too. Not getting no answer.
No
there.
luck? All right.
No, there's a 40 number as well, but yeah, but I'll just see who I can reach out to dealing with or that has dealings with Carol Anstey and just take it from there.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time. Okay, thanks so much for your help, sir, and you have a great day.
You too, Elaine. All the best. Okay, bye-bye. It's a tricky piece of business, to say the very least, and it's certainly very frustrating. Also, a question coming from an emailer, and that's about the ongoing saga at Canada Post. The question is to whether or not there's actually been a vote amongst the 55,000 unionized members at Canada Post. Remember, their request is going to arbitration back on the 4th of June. The corporation itself said that's going to take too long, so they wanted the federal minister responsible to intervene. That's Patty Hayju, federal jobs minister. And so she said at that time that the Industrial Relations Board will be directed to conduct a vote as soon as possible. I don't know what's the holdup there, because if there's going to be a vote mandated by the federal government, then that should be able to happen sooner than later. In addition to that, plenty of folks who are in the world of organized labor in this province and in the country talking about how collective bargaining does get compromised with this type of strategy employed by the feds. Now, it is an essential service for many businesses and people on the so-called last mile that is served by Canada Post. But when you think about it out loud, these types of economic disruptions, the feds have been pretty clear here. Legislating people back to work who were striking regarding the rail, legislated back to work when striking regarding the ports, and yes, legislated back to work over Christmas when they had a 32-day strike at Canada Post, and now this type of forced vote. There is a conversation to be had about collective bargaining and what that looks like into the future if this becomes the norm. Now, there are lots of job actions that don't have massive implication regarding economic interruptions, very much unlike the rail service and the port services and Canada Post. But someone asked me what the result of the vote is, and as far as I know, there hasn't been a vote as of yet. They've been in a legal strike position since 20th of May or something, but here we are with the unknowns. And then, of course, I think the rightful question people are asking is, with the operational losses to the tune of $1.3 billion last year, what is the future of Canada Post? Parcel service, well down. Letter services, down. Why? The obvious competition that's in the market. So what does the future hold for that used to be self-sufficient Crown Corporation, and now not so much? A couple of years ago, went to the federal government to borrow $1 billion. Now with $1.3 billion in operating losses, some offset by some of the things they sold off. So net loss after the shedding of some assets, somewhere around $743 million. Not insignificant. So let's take a final break of the morning. When we come back, Cal's in the queue to respond to Elaine. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number one. Cal, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
In reference to Elaine, I had the same issues with CRA. First thing, CRA operates on a local time basis. So if you have a out of province phone number like 780, like in Alberta, then CRA operates on Alberta time on your phone because it searches for 780. If after that, I found the CRA revoking passwords was a real problem. However, you can circumvent, or I think you can, I do anyway, by choosing sign in with a partner like your bank, and it bypasses all that. You just put in your bank card number, if you're already signed up with the bank through Revenue Canada, and you can log in easy peasy.
Good idea, and I'm glad you let us know, and hopefully Elaine is listening. We'll give it a shot.
Yep, that was my experience, and I'm 70 years old, and I'm one of these guys that keeps forgetting passwords, and I write them down, and it seems like every time I go back to CRA, oh, that's wrong, this is wrong. So anyway, I figured if I get signed in with a bank, it'll work, and it seemed to work for me.
Good idea.
Anyway, Patty, I'm remiss if I don't say belated happy Father's Day to you and all the dads out there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are you a dad, Cal?
I am, sir. I'm actually a granddad.
Happy Father's Day to you as well, then, sir. We're losing the connection. Yeah, sorry, Cal. We've completely lost the connection there. So I hope maybe he was trying to pass on some information regarding his grandchildren, which sounds delightful. And of course, every year after tax season comes and goes, there are temporary employees brought on for tax season, but this year there was also an additional round of job losses at CRA. Between 2024 and 2025, their workforce dropped by over 6,600 people. So that probably adds to the complication of trying to connect with CRA. There's been a bunch of public sector jobs that have been lost in the recent past. CRA Service Canada at the top of that heap, but also things like Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada have also lost a ton of employees. I think maybe 2,000 in that department. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Bernice. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
Good, honey. I'm looking for my cell phone. I lost my cell phone 2 weeks ago. I was doing yard work and I happened to put my phone on the trunk of my car. And my husband decided to take my car and went to Kmart Road. And when he came back, I realised my phone was gone. So it was lost from Karen Drive to Kmart Road.
Leave it to the husband.
Leave it to the husband. And if I don't get my phone back by the end of July, my contract is up and I have to pay $435 for my phone. So I'm putting out a big reward if somebody can find my phone for me.
And so where was the starting point?
I'm after walking the Outer Ring Road twice, all around the area. I can't seem to find it.
Oh, that's unfortunate. So if anyone's got a phone, it's no good to you, but it's certainly good to Bernice. So if anyone finds it and thinks it might be yours, hopefully they get in touch with us. How's that?
Thank you so much. And it's an iPhone 14.
Okay. Fingers crossed, Bernice.
Thank you so much, Patty.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling. Line number 3. Caller, you're on the air.
Good day, Patty. How are you?
Excellent today. How about you?
Not too bad at all. Patty, I was wondering, what is the protocol or the law, if there's any such a thing, for a federal minister in answering emails or phone calls to their constituents or to their province, really?
Well, there isn't a law. But, you would think it would be their ethical responsibility, given the fact that there's no problem to see them at your door looking for your vote, and then they get elected, and a lot of their constituents get left behind with no communication, whether it be return phone call or the easy one of return email. Because many of which, they just have the form letter that comes in the form of an email. So how long have you been trying? Who are you trying to reach?
Minister of Fisheries.
Who's a local?
No, federal.
Yeah, well, she's a local, Joanne Thompson, St. John's East.
Exactly.
Yep.
And strange, Patty, that you say, out of ethics alone, ethically, she should answer the what's the name, the email or the telephone call or some of her staff, One would think. But I'm sure at this point, with the fishing season right upon us, she's getting bombarded with emails and telephone calls and all the like. Not a word coming back.
Well, no doubt. I mean, this time of year, whether it be commercial harvesters themselves or people working in the plants or people just asking questions about the recreational food fishery. I don't know which questions you're asking, but I'm sure they're getting pounded. But the fact is, she's not alone. It's not a one-woman show. There's a pretty significant staff at DFO.
Exactly. But how come everybody got their head down in the sand?
We get lots of complaints here from people who are trying to get in touch with one person or another, one minister or another. And I mean, for someone in this province, it's especially, I would think, irritating might be the right word, that a local member regarding the fishery is unable to answer any questions. Do you mind if I ask the questions that you're looking to have answered?
The reason why we're treated differently than the rest of Atlantic Canada, that's one. And when there seems to be enough of fish for a commercial fishery, it doesn't seem to be enough of fish for the ordinary Newfoundlander to go out and get some to put on the table when they want. We were allowed, before the moratorium, every person in Newfoundland had the right to go out fishing, and you get a fish when you wanted a fish. But now we're told when to go, when not to go, how much to catch, but still for all there was lots of fish there for NAPCO, and now the commercial fishery thinks that there's lots of fish there. Some want to double the quota, some want to double and a half, and even triple the quota. There's that much northern cod. They claim.
Even though it's still not out of the critical zone, or it's in the cautious zone, moved from the critical. Well, that was just a timeline of measurement issue. No more fish are in the water. And you mentioned the quota. So even the union is asking for the total allowable catch in northern cod to be 35,000 tonne, up from 18. So people seem to think there's fish out there.
Yeah, and why are we excluded? That's the burning question. Why?
I honestly don't know.
No, I can't even hazard to get. And is it because they want us to buy from the commercial people?
That could be part of it. Maybe.
Yeah, no, but we shouldn't have to do that. Most of the cod they catch goes to other places. We buy it when it come back as a fish stick or something that's second processed, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's another good point with just how little local product, seafood that is on the grocery store shelves here. There's different seafood markets you can go to, but you'd think it'd be easy enough to go to the grocery store to buy whatever's caught in our own waters.
Yeah. Well, you can go to the supermarket and buy a piece of fillet at $10 a pound. That's $20 a kilo. Where are we getting the money for that stuff? When we should be able to go catch our own.
No argument coming from me. People worry about, well, it would be abused. But how much abuse would people actually think would take place here? I mean, if someone wants to, at whatever frequency, get just one or two fish simply to eat, then I wonder just how much of this so-called abuse would actually take place. Not as much as people think, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I know this is probably a weird example, but you catch somebody drinking and driving on the road. What are you going to do, ban every car on the road because it's possible he could be drunk? I don't think so. This is where the law enforcement comes in. This is where the fisheries officers come in. That's their job. That's not my job. My job as a law-abiding citizen is to avoid the law. And DFO don't even have the respect to give us the rules. They're just surmising the rules. We're like this 15 per boat. That's not a law.
No, it's a policy. Exactly. You've had the last word. I understand your concerns this morning, and thanks for making time for the show.
Thank you, Patty, for your time.
My pleasure. All the best.
Have a good one.
You too. All right, there we go. Good show today. Big thanks to all hands. And myself and Sarah Strickland will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.